Alright, so what we're working on in this lesson is 6.1, and 6.1 has a lot of information in it, so we're going to split it into two parts. Part 1, we're going to deal with multiplying exponents, raising exponents to another power, and then dealing with the zero power. That's a lot of information. Part 2 is going to deal with negative exponents and dividing with exponents. All right, so before we fill it in, let's just go ahead and see what happens when we multiply. When we multiply here, I have this long space here because I want us to actually expand it and write it. If I have a to the fourth, that means I have 4 a's. And then I have a 3, and then this says a squared, so I have 2 a's, and then a b. And then what happens is after it's expanding, we put everything together. Well, numbers get multiplied by numbers. And so there's a 1 in front of here. And so 1 times 3 is 3. And now what I do is I count my a's. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it becomes a to the 6th. And then I only had 1 b, so it becomes b. Okay, so now let's do this next one. X to the third would mean I have 3 x's, and then I have 2 y's, and then I have a 2 with an x, and then 4 y's. So I multiply, and I have a 1 times 2, which is 2, and then I have 1, 2, 3, 4 x's, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 y's. Okay. So we're not going to do all of them expanding like this, but I wanted you to see where it comes from. Now what you should recognize though here is what I did was I just kept counting them. And counting the a's is like adding the a's. I have a 4 and a 2. 4 plus 2 gave me 6. Here I had a 3. There's no number by this x, so if you don't see an exponent there, you know it's a 1. So I have 3 plus 1, which gave me 4, and then 2 plus 4 gave me 6. So when multiplying, you're going to add exponents. And so an example would be x to the 5th times x to the 3rd. That's going to give you x to the 5 plus 3, which is x to the 8th. What I'd like you to do is I would like you to try these next two right here on your own, following those rules that we just did. Once you think you have it, go ahead and press play. Okay, so you should have recognized that this is a -1. -1 times 2 is -2. For my a's, I have 1 a here and 2 here, so that makes a total of 3 a's. I have 4 b's and 1 b, which makes 5 b's, and then I have 2 c's on the first one. And so that's your first answer. All right, here I have 4 times a -1, which is a -4. I have 2 x's and 3 x's, and 2 plus 3 is 5. And then I have 3 y's and 2 y's, which gives me 5 y's. Okay? All right, so when you're multiplying, you have to add exponents as long as they have the same base. So a's go with a's, b's go with b's, x's with x's, etc., etc. All right, raising to a power. Let's kind of not fill this in yet. Let's actually look at it. When this is to the 4th power, what this means is that this thing in the parentheses is written 4 times. So I'm going to do that. So it's 2ab to the 3rd, 2ab to the 3rd, 2ab to the 3rd, 2ab to the 3rd. It's written 4 times. So that's 2 times 2, which is 4, times 2 again, which is 8, times 2 one more time is 16. Now when I look at my a's, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, so a to the 4th. And for my b's, I have 3, 6, 9, 12 b's. Now you may recognize a pattern, which is great, but I don't want to go over it until we do the next one. Okay, so same idea here. This time, I'll use yellow. I have what's in parentheses here. And this time I'm going to have to write it 3 times. So negative a squared b times negative a squared b times negative a squared b. So that's negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1. So 3 negatives stays negative. So it'll be negative 1. I have 2, 4, 6 b's. I'm sorry, 6 a's. And then I have 1, 2, 3 b's. This rule's a little harder to see, but essentially what you're doing is you're taking this exponent and you're taking it everywhere. So it becomes 2 to the 4th because there's nothing there. This becomes a to the 4th. And then this one becomes 4 sets of 3, which is 4 times 3, which is 12. So when you raise an exponent to another power, you multiply the exponents. Another way that I like to explain it is that since it's on the outside of parentheses up here, it's like you distribute it. You distribute it to everything. So let's try that here. This comes here, it goes here, and it goes here. So 3 to the 2nd, which is just 9. So I'm going to go ahead and write 9. And then I have 2 times 2, so x to the 4th, and 2 times 3, which is 6. Be careful not to bring it 3 squared. Exponent to exponent, you just multiply. Okay, I'd like you to try this one on your own. See what you could do with that one. That one's a little trickier, but see if you can get part of it right. Okay, so first of all, you should have hopefully recognized that that was a negative 1. Negative 1 to the 4th is negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1. There's 4 negatives, so it's going to become a positive 1. And so we can actually just write nothing. You can write a 1 or you can leave it blank. And so now I take this 4 to the 3, so it becomes x to the 12th. I take it to the y. There was nothing there, so it just becomes y to the 4th. And then I take it to the z, so it becomes z to the 12th. So the rule for multiplying is if I have a to the 5th to the 2nd, I distribute that and it becomes a to the 5 times 2, which is a to the 10. All right? Okay, so last rule we have to learn is the 0 power, and this is actually the best rule because it's the easiest. Whenever I have something to the 0 power, it means it's not there. So anything to the 0 power, we cross off, and it just becomes the number 1. Because remember, if I have something like an x here, there's nothing in front, but there is always a 1 there. So you always have to have a 1, okay? So here, that means there's no b's. So it becomes 6a to the 3rd times 1, which really is just 6a to the 3rd. This time, you see how it's on the outside? So it's saying this whole thing is brought to the 0 power, which means that whole thing, I'll get my marker, is gone, and it's just 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at these examples. So when you have something that has 2 steps, it has a multiplying and an exponent, you always take care of the parentheses and the exponent, similar to when you're doing PEMDAS. Remember, we spent some time with PEMDAS. Okay, so what I have to do first is I need to take care of this. And so this is going to become x squared y to the 4th, and then I just bring down the other one. And so now negative 3 times 1 is just negative 3. I have 1 plus 2, so I have 3 x's. And I have 1 plus 4, so I have 4 y's. Okay? All right. So besides that, you should be able to do them. You just had to know what to do first, and you always take care of parentheses and exponents. So why don't you go ahead and try 2, 3, and 4, and then when you think you're ready, go ahead and press play. Okay, so for 2, you just had to distribute, and so that becomes 2 squared x to the 4th y to the 6th. And I do want you to simplify 2 squared. 2 squared is just 4, so it's 4x to the 4th y to the 6th. And that's the answer for 2. For number 3, I'm going to distribute here. And so this is something that's tricky. It becomes negative 4 squared. Because the negative was in parentheses here, I'm going to keep it in parentheses, and you'll see why in a second. And then that was a 3, so it's x to the 6th. And then 2 times 0 is just 0, so it's y to the 0. Okay, negative 4 squared is negative 4 times negative 4, which is a positive 16. So if you didn't have that negative in parentheses, you would have kept it negative. But because it's in parentheses, it becomes positive. So the answer is 16x to the 6th, and I don't have that y because zeros cross off. All right, next one, you should have done this first part, the exponent first. And so, change colors. When you do that, you get 3 squared and y to the 6th, and then I'm going to bring down everything else. 3 squared is 9, and 9 times negative 2 is negative 18, and then x squared y to the 6th. And that's it. So for the first part of this lesson, you have to remember that when you are multiplying things, you add the exponents. But when you have power to a power, you multiply the exponents. And then the last little thing is if you have a 0 power, that means it's not there. So it's gone, or it's the number 1. All right.